Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I want to be going over the BMW N55 reliability video 2021. So let's get on to the video.
What? Goddamn, get it done, will ya? Woo. When the blow up now, everybody's so unusual with it. Shit. But said times in his rhymes, cause his memories. We running through New York, so you know.
Okay guys, so in front of us right here, we've got the BMW N55 M Performance engine. Now, if many of you guys don't know what the M Performance stands for, the M Performance is a tuned version of the N55 engine. If you see on the E90s and the E87s, they're just a regular N55 engine producing 300 bhp. But when you come to the M Performance engine, you get an extra 20 bhp. That's what it adds on. So the M Performance gives you an extra 20 bhp. But realistically, what does that equate to on problems on this car? And from a reliability standpoint, because obviously, as many of you guys know, more power equals more problems. But in essence, that's true. But bearing in mind it come from BMW and BMW up the power, it can be trusted to not give issues because BMW put them to safe tolerances. And obviously, where they're building the engines at the same time, they check the power, and obviously if it's going to put pressure on the internals, they will upgrade the internals as they go along before they even fit the engine to the car. So failure points, a lot of you will ask me, what does actually fail on the N55 engine? Well, to say the least, this is a 2013 models to say, because this is a 62 plate, which is made late 2012, registered first 2013. But a lot of you will ask me exactly what's going to fail on these. So I'll be honest with you. Before, on the old N55, you would have the injectors that would fail. They were a known common problem. And this was 2009 up to 2011, I believe, when BMW changed all the injector design. The next one on these would have been the high pressure fuel pump, which sits under the seats in the rear. But again, BMW rectified that. But on years prior to this, it had a massive issue with failing. Another one on these, which equates to all N55 engines, regardless new or old, is carbon buildup. These do suffer from carbon buildup, hence why a lot of people don't realize why BMW actually put the auto stop start. That's because town driving can actually cause more carbon deposits than it's worth. That's why they put the auto stop start to shut the engine, so it's not constantly directing fuel into the engine. Not only that, it's also to help get the best miles per gallon and also to meet the new emission standards with the stop start engines, because your engine running is causing a lot of emissions, and which is bad for the planet, of course. So what still fails on this N55 engine, which a lot of you will probably be wise of already? So the first one that likes to fail is the oil cooler and oil filter housing gasket. Now, they are a known weak point on the BMW N55 engine, regardless now, regardless in 2009, when this engine was released, doesn't matter. They like to fail, period. And they still fail on this, especially the oil cooler. Now, if you're planning to remap these, you can go to the MSL Performance oil cooler and upgrade the oil cooler as well as the oil filter cap, and also all the bolts here if you feel like to, if you're going to be taking the levels higher. The next one on these that likes to fail is the valve cover. Now, all BMWs at 100k, because of the way the engines sit and they sit sideways, the oil likes to leak out the gaskets, and this one was no exception. This one has just been changed before I bought it, so it saved me a massive job to actually do it, but they will leak, and it actually started leaking at 100k. Therefore, if you do notice a smell of burning oil smell inside the cabin, that will be valve cover gasket. Now, that is notorious to leaking on all BMWs because of the way the engines sit at a slant. Therefore, it will leak, and it usually likes to leak around 90 to 100k, same as this one did, and it was just replaced, and you'll smell a smell of burning oil coming into your cabin. They're very easy to replace, not expensive to replace either, and is something you can do at home very easily. The part is readily available, and when it fails, you will smell it because you end up smelling a burning oil smell, or you'll take your car to a garage and they will notice it, and then they will end up telling you about the leak. The next one on these, which sit right down here, are the Vanos solenoids. Now, to tell you the truth, this is on 117k. I usually say Vanos solenoids usually last around 100 to 130k, the original genuine ones, before you need to replace them. This car's on 117k and I haven't got no Vanos issues yet I say, but they do like to give issues and they will go. Now when they go, you will need to replace them for genuine BMW ones. Do not use cheap Chinese junk from online, because a lot of your issues will still be there if you use the cheap Chinese ones. Therefore, I do recommend to get your Vanos solenoids. They do fail, but they're not expensive this day and age, and they're readily available for all cars. Do not buy used ones either, because a lot of them people come out of broken cars that don't even start, don't even know if they had the codes beforehand. So if you buy broken ones or secondhand parts, don't expect it to run perfectly either. That's why I tell you, go and buy brand new. Now the next one on these is the intake charge pipe for the turbo. Now that is a common problem for splitting and leaking boost everywhere. Now everyone knows it, and usually it splits when you up the boost on these engines. Now, bearing in mind this one hasn't been remapped, therefore it hasn't been split, but it doesn't mean to say you shouldn't upgrade it. I will be upgrading this definitely, just to be on the safe side, because I don't want it to end up splitting, regardless of remap or not. But it is a known common problem. That pipe does split, and it can be quite fiddly to actually get to, because you may have to drop the intercooler to actually get to it. There is other ways to get to it as well, by taking the intake box off and probably fiddling about down there with your hands if your hands are small enough to get through the gaps and maybe plug it on. But I would strongly advise to do it from underneath and pull the pipe out from underneath. It is a common problem, and if you guys have that issue, you can go and buy the pipe readily available on eBay and Amazon. Now another one on this engine, which a lot of you will probably be aware of on the BMW N55 engine, which is on all of them, is the water pump and thermostat. Now the thermostat you can see right down here, I've shown you in a previous video, and the water pump sits directly beneath that, bolted to near the engine with a U-pipe bend. Now the water pump and thermostat usually last quite long in the UK, but in the USA, they do go out, and it's pretty common for them to go out because of how much heat there, and obviously the climate in their country, which is understandable. But here in the UK, it's very, very rare that the water pumps do go out, and I haven't known them to go really bad on these M Performance M55 engines. And if I'm honest with you, usually the most common cause of them failing is because they're plastic and they end up cracking, which causes them to leak, which causes them to fail, which is due again to heat. Providing you're not over boosting it, or if you haven't got it remapped, it's therefore not going to put extra heat under the engine bay, which therefore isn't going to cause extra pressure on the water pump to actually cool the engine a lot more. You've got to understand when you remap these engines as well, that as you're putting more boost in, the intercooler has to work harder, so the engine's getting hotter, so the water pump has to double its speed to work harder, which therefore your water pump will fail. That's why I am against remaps personally. If you choose to go and get this remap, that's personally your choice and up to you. But for me, I am against it, and I won't be getting this car remap because this is plentiful, quick enough for me. And as many of you guys know, I have my M5, so therefore I don't need power. If I need power, I do have that. Now the next one on these is all the idler pulley and the belt tensioner. Now the belt tensioner usually likes to fail when the oil cooler leaks oil onto it and people don't notice it. What ends up happening is the oil gets passed and goes onto the belt, which causes the tensioner to become very slippery. The belt ends up coming loose, the crankshaft ends up wrapping it round and then sticking it straight through the sump. When that happens, you end up with all your auxiliaries and your car not starting, and also probably destroy your whole engine. So it is recommended that you actually get that changed if you notice it. Now, a lot of you are going to say to me, oh, but when you look at your tensioner, it's wobbling. On the M55, it's perfectly normal for this to be kind of loose and wobbling. The M55 is meant to be like that. The bolt is not meant to be over tight. It's an aluminium bolt, and you need to be careful not to shoot off. They should not be tight because they're torque to yield. If you don't know what torque to yield is, when the engine gets hot, it stretches the bolt down. So therefore, you do not need to be tightening them fully tight, because otherwise when they pull themselves down, the bolts are likely to snap. You'll end up having to actually drill the bolt out, which you don't want to end up doing. Now overall, these new N55 engines, especially from 2012 and up, have become super reliable. They changed over to the piezo injectors, they changed the high pressure fuel pump, they changed the wastegate on the turbos as well, because as many of you guys know, which is another problem on reliability, is the early M55s were plagued in wastegate rattle. That was a common issue, and a lot of you messaged me regarding the wastegate rattle clip, which they've now stopped making. That's why I can't get back to any of you guys, but it was a common issue. Luckily, BMW rectified that and changed it to stop that problem coming a common problem. On these M55 engines, if you're looking at an M Performance one, a lot of reliability standpoints have been sorted on these engines. You therefore do not need to worry if you're in the market to buy one. Just be aware when you do go and buy one, a lot of owners are not going to be honest with you. But the majority of people, if I'm very, very honest with you, do look after these cars, especially the newer M55 engines. Why is that? Many people ask. A lot of these BMs now, a lot of the younger generation are buying. Previous versions of the BMWs, they were so expensive that it was mostly people in businesses and lease cars that were buying them. But as the years went on, it's the younger generation buying them. Bearing in mind you can buy a BMW for sub 30 grand with an M55 in it these days, and it was a lot of the generation that were aware of all the previous problems, so people know how to look after them. Most people that own these cars with the N55 are aware of how to repair these cars themselves and what to get checked immediately. For instance, that's why this one had the control arms done, the gearbox fluid done, a lot of the engine mechanicals, because people were aware of the issues that creep up on this engine already before it even happens. And that is a good thing this day and age. A lot of people were aware of what comes up because of all the previous generations, and the people that are buying them are usually enthusiasts that have owned other BMs or are not stupid enough to let these problems arise, and they know how to treat the car properly. So that sums up the M55 reliability, and there might have been a few things I actually missed. But as I said, reliability wise, there hasn't been really many issues on this car. I have a lot of receipts for the work done, and I must say there hasn't really been much problems with this one exactly. Okay guys, so there you have it. I've now gone over the BMW N55 reliability 2021. Now, as I said, there is probably a lot of things I've missed out, and a lot of you are going to probably say to me, oh, but this failed on my E90 or E87. Maybe it did, but the fact is, on these newer F-Series BMWs, which a lot of the M55 is actually fitted, these engines have become more and more reliable. BMW rectified a lot of the issues that the first year M55s had, and actually rectified a lot of the internals on this engine to make it even more reliable. So if you guys are actually having them issues, then it's all on the old ones. But as far as these ones go, later on and up on the F-Series, these are very, very strong units and very reliable. It's one of BMW's most reliable engines they actually have ever made, and you guys can go and look that up even on the internet if you don't believe me. The M55 won many awards, and that's why BMW took it and went and made the S55 engine, which they put in the M4 and M3 also. They'd used it from the derived M55 to make the S55 because how many awards this engine won and how good the engine was. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. This is BMW Dr. Dean, and if you do want to see more videos on the M55 engine, please subscribe and like this video. So thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.